In this video, I'm going to be fitting the new battery control module, which has just been brought out by the SL guys. I'm going to be fitting this unit, or attempting to fit this unit, without taking out the rear boot carpet. I don't think that's ever been attempted before, so we're going to find out whether it's actually possible to do that in this video. Now, if you don't know this already, these R230s have a propensity to catch fire, and the culprit is the battery control module in the car overheats, the capacitors in there start leaking, this catches fire, the rear of the car catches fire, and before you know it, your pristine R230 is scrap. When I first heard about that, I didn't believe it, but I can tell you, barely a week goes by where you do not see an R230 at Copart with fire damage or with some kind of battery related problem, which is invariably to do with this unit here. Now, unfortunately, Bosch don't make the original battery control unit anymore, and a second-hand one is going to cost you anywhere between £500 and £1,500 if you're lucky enough to be able to find one. And even if you can find one, there's absolutely no guarantee that the week after you fit it, it won't develop the same problem that some of the others have developed. So I would very strongly advise all R230 owners to first of all fit an inspection hatch. I've done a full video on the excellent inspection hatch that these guys brought out, and possibly consider even getting hold of one of these here. They're not particularly cheap, they're about $750. I'll leave the exact prices and where to get them from in the description. Fitting one of these as a preventative measure, and perhaps keeping your Bosch battery control unit as a spare should you ever need one. On this channel, in the SL55 playlist, there is a very detailed video about how to remove this boot carpet here, should you ever need to access the rear strut. And so if you want to remove the boot carpet to do this job, there is a video on this channel showing you exactly how to do it. There is also a video on this channel showing you how to fit one of these panels here from the SL guys, and that does not require removing the boot carpet. Fitting a new battery control module will entail taking out the old BCM, which is this here. There are 4 nuts that hold this in, and we're going to have to undo some wires. And the tricky thing is to undo the top nuts. It is possible, but it's quite tricky to do. To make our life easier, we've invested £8.50. That's right, £8.50 for a cheap and cheerful socket set, which comes with the parts that we're going to need, namely a wobble bit. You can also use a universal joint bit, and a slimline extension bar here, and a 10mm socket as well to get to that top nut. And just as a matter of interest, this also contains the screwdriver fittings you would need to take off this cover here should you wish to actually inspect your BCM. So I'll leave a link to which eBay seller we got that from. So I'm confident that we're going to be able to remove the BCM through this hole here. The new BCM from the SL guys entails tapping into the 12-volt power supply of the cigarette lighter, which is here. Now, I've taken this light out here just temporarily, just so it's not running down our battery while we're doing work. And I want to show you how to get this cigarette lighter out, or how to unplug it and get access to the wires. This is a new genuine Mercedes cigarette lighter that we got from eBay, just for the purposes of demonstrating how they fit together and how you're going to have to unplug it and potentially take it out. The first thing to notice about these Mercedes cigarette lighters is the way the plug comes out, because it's a little bit unusual. Here you can see the orientation of the plug, and this plug actually comes straight up towards the sky. You might think that the plug is actually plugged in sideways, but it plugs on the top, so you're going to have to get something underneath and wedge it up to get that plug off. This whole outside fitting is held to the car with these 2 plastic clips here and here, and I'm not sure it would be very easy to get the whole cigarette lighter out. I think once you've pushed this and clicked it in place, it's easy to get it in, but not so easy to get it out again. If you take out this light here, which just pulls straight out, you can, if you look through that hole, you can just see, just pulling this piece of plastic back here, just undone this fitting here, you can see that plug that goes into the back of the cigarette lighter. So let's try unplugging. So with that fitting undone, you can just about get your hand underneath here and pop that lead off. This is the lead here. You can see it plugs down into the cigarette lighter like that. Now what we're going to be doing is splicing not into the brown wire, because that's always the earth on a Mercedes. We're going to be splicing into this wire here. On the battery control module, it comes with this wire here and a special fitting here, which is designed just to wrap around a wire, and then you click it shut and that cuts into the wire. So what we would need to do is just unwrap a little bit of this insulation here so that we can get that in. To make this nice and neat, what we want to be doing is running that blue wire on the new BCM behind here, through here, and splicing into here, putting everything back together so that you'll never see it. And in order to get that blue wire through there, I'm first going to thread a thick piece of earth wire through there, and then I should hopefully be able to pull it through. Before I do that, I'm going to disconnect the negative terminal battery of the consumer battery here, and then I'm going to go to the front of the car and disconnect the negative terminal of the starter battery in that order, remembering that when we reconnect them, you always reconnect the starter battery up first and then the consumer battery. There we go, we've got that safely disconnected, and for good measure I'm just putting a rubber glove around that negative terminal, and similarly on the consumer battery, because I do not want any chance of this springing up there, touching that and electrocuting myself when I'm working on this. Piece of brown wire went through there, easy peasy lemon squeezy, so we should just be able to attach the wire from the new BCM on there and just pull that through. Just to give myself a little bit more wiggle room, I've just taken out the two screws that hold this in, and there are two types of fittings. These screws here have a little cap over them, and the cap just pops up. Other type of fitting that you'll frequently encounter on a Mercedes is, I think it's called a Mexican hat type fitting, whereby you pry out this plastic peg first and then you pry out the second fitting. If you make the mistake of trying to pry out that second fitting with this still in place, you will end up breaking the fitting. Those bottom two fittings are easy to get to. The top fitting up here you can get with an extension on a socket. Now it is possible to get to that top nut up there using a 10mm wobble bit, but it is quite tricky. This little cover here should just clip forward, it's hinged, and then you're going to need to take these two here off. This is a 10mm fitting, this here is a 13mm fitting, I believe. This plug can be quite tight up against these wires, so sometimes it's actually easier just lifting this off the four studs first before you undo that. But first off, we're just going to undo these big thick cables. Try and remember how they come off and get them back in the right order if at all possible. Same with these ones here. Just when you take them off, it should be fairly obvious which cable goes where, but it's a good idea to put them back the way they came off. Now that this is lifted off the studs, we should just be able to pull this lower plug down and hopefully, famous last words, lift this out. Probably the first time ever that anybody's ever taken out one of these without taking out the boot carpet. While we've got this out, let's have a quick look at it. This is a car with less than 50,000 miles on it, one careful owner. Let's pop these four screws out and see what our battery control module looks like. So we've got those four screws out using one of these sockets from our £8.50 socket set. Let's take this off and see if our battery control module is pristine. Yep, that's looking pretty good. If there were signs of burning, you'd see some of these little MOSFETs here melted, and what can happen is the capacitors here start leaking onto the board and shorting everything out, but this one here looks to be in perfect condition. Just before we have a go at fitting this new battery control module from the SL guys, let's just whip these three screws out and see what the fuses inside look like. Once again, using one of the little bits in that super cheap toolbox. I'm not sponsored by them, I sometimes wish I was. Let's have a look. Okay, there we go. That's the main fuse there. And then we have two smaller 2-amp fuses. So the 60-amp fuse and two smaller 2-amp fuses. Next up, we're going to tape these two wires together here, and then we'll pull the other end of this brown cable through, and that should pull the blue wire through. But before you do that, make sure that you've got this in the right position. For example, I think this blue wire needs to go behind these wires here. So if you simply pulled it through like that, the blue wire would be in front of those wires and you wouldn't be able to put it on the other side easily. So we'll just thread this brown wire behind there first. There we go, we just threaded that brown wire through. Now hopefully we should be able to tape that to there with a little bit of masking tape, pull it through, and we're almost jobbed out. Ideally you want to use electrical tape when putting those two wires together, but let's see if the masking tape is good enough to pull that through without the yellow coming off. Okay, and there we go. That's the blue wire threaded through nicely. Before you put this in there, you are actually going to have to take this fuse box cover off, because unlike the original, you can't access these studs here without taking this off. So we're going to take this off first, and hopefully we'll be able to get to those screws once it's in situ. Just before you hook this over the 4 studs completely, remember to plug this in, because that plug is pretty tight against that wire. This BCM comes with its own nylock nuts, so if you've done something really stupid and dropped one of your nuts from here down there whilst trying to get it off, you do have a second chance, because you'll end up with one spare fitting. You do not have to go crazy when tightening these up. Obviously there'll be a little bit of resistance because they are nylock fittings, but you do not want to go snapping off one of those studs. You need to be nice and tight, but don't overdo it. Next up, we're going to see if we can get this fuse box cover back on. Now my advice is put the 3 screws in finger tight first, so that you don't risk dropping them down there when you're trying to blindly tighten them up. So those 3 screws are in, just so that when you put your finger over there, you can feel the prick of the screw. Start off with this bottom one first, which you can just do with a standard screwdriver. And then we'll use this fitting with a small socket to hopefully get up there and tighten the other two. This top fitting here, you can just use a standard screwdriver for. This one is going to be slightly tricky. I'll just put this polythene down here so I don't drop anything down the back. One here you can get to with a watchmaker screwdriver. It's not ideal, but it works. Next up, we just need to put these studs on. I'm just using a neodymium magnet on the back of the socket so they don't fall down a hole. To get that top nut threaded, what I've done is just put the nut on the end of a watchmaker screwdriver and then touch the watchmaker screwdriver on the end of the thread and pushed the nut up, and that means it helps you avoid dropping the nut down that hole. Basically, those 4 nuts on using the screwdriver trick. Now we just need to nip them tight. Once again, do not over tighten these and end up snapping something. That would truly be a tragedy. Finally, this top one, we're going to use this wobble bit that came in that tool set. We're going to put it over by hand and then put the wrench on the end and just nip it tight. All those nuts done up. Now let's connect these. Like the easiest way is to take it through here. So we threaded the blue wire through here, and what we're going to do is use that fitting to clamp onto the green and black wire. We're going to have to do undo a little bit of this insulation, and then just go over that with some electrical tape to make it nice and neat. But remember, you'll never see any of this. Now, I've never used one of these fittings before, but the idea is you put the wire through there, make sure that's pushed down, and then when you clamp this together, that will cut into the wire and give an electrical connection. Whether that works or not, we'll soon find out. This actually comes out of here. I'm not sure if it's supposed to, but it does come out of there, and I'm going to actually fit this to the wire first and then slot it on, and hopefully that will work. Get the right wire and then push that shut firmly. It should click shut. Once that is firmly clicked shut, in theory you should just be able to plug this fitting into it. You do need to make sure that when you push that on, the little teeth of the metal fitting are actually going over the spade connector. Hopefully that's in there nice and firmly. Whether or not we can now plug this into the cigarette lighter is of course another matter. Let's give that a go. It is pretty much impossible to film what I'm going to do here, but I'm just going to stick my fingers through the front here and push down on there and hopefully push that plug back in. Well, I think we've got that plug in. That's probably the trickiest part of the whole exercise. You have to kind of get your hand in under here and push down from the top. It's quite tricky. Now we just need to plug our light back in. That just clips in like that, but we won't do that just yet. We'll just turn the car on, connect the batteries and see if it's all working. Remember, on the R230, always connect the starter battery up first and then the consumer battery in the back. If you do it the wrong way round, you'll get a red battery warning light on the dash. You'll have to clear that with a scanner. Okay, now when I connect this up here, there'll either be a loud spark from here and the whole thing will have gone Pete-tong, or this battery control module will spring to life and show me the 2 voltages from the batteries. So let's do it. Okay. So in fact, the cigarette lighter only becomes live when you actually have the ignition on. So let's tighten this up first, turn the ignition on and see if this battery control module actually works. So this is quite nerve-wracking. We've taken a perfectly functioning car. Let's see, and let's turn the ignition on. And let's see what happens in the boot. Whoa, there we go. Look at that. The SL guys. Consumer battery. What is that? 11.8 volts. The starter battery, 12.7 volts. So this is what is so brilliant about this, is that is telling me, although I've got no errors on the actual dash yet, that's telling me that I need to take this battery out and actually charge it properly. And I know from experience that these batteries actually take, it can take a day and a half or 2 days to actually charge. So it's not a matter of driving around the block. Now let's start the car and see if that leaps up to 14.6. There we go, that's showing that the alternator is now charging the consumer battery, and obviously that's showing a higher voltage now. Now you see the starter battery here is also showing 14 volts. That voltage after a few minutes will drop because the starter battery, the alternator only charges the starter battery for a short period of time. Now, just before we finish this video, if you've disconnected both batteries, you may find that you need to reset your wing mirrors down here from the folding in and folding out of the wing mirrors. You may also need to reset your windows going up and down. So I'm just going to put the windows up and down a couple of times to reset them, put the roof up and down, make sure that everything's working as it should. Put the roof up and down once. Now when I close the door, the windows go all the way to the top and they've basically reset themselves. If you have a Mercedes R230 with the dual battery system, I would strongly urge you to consider spending a few pounds or a few dollars and installing one of those inspection hatches. There's a video on this channel showing you exactly how to do it. It's not particularly difficult. If, like me, you have a low mileaged, cherished R230 or SL55, I would potentially go one step further and actually preemptively fit a new battery control module to your car. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and others as well. Please remember to give it a thumbs up, and if you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing. I'm going to leave this video here. We've managed to fit a battery control module without taking the boot lining out of the car, which I don't think has ever been done before. Still to come on this car is I'm going to replace the dust covers on the struts, which I believe will be a little bit of an effort. I've got the supercharger oil to change and possibly the supercharger bearing as well. It's making a little bit of noise. Other than that, this car has been fantastic and I'm looking forward to more sunny days to actually get some use out of it.